Have you ever wondered why, even though you were considered an intelligent, promising, even genius child, today you feel like someone who has failed? You look back and see awards, praise, impressed teachers, proud parents. But now, as an adult, what do you see? Frustration? Stagnation? An almost physical sensation of having disappointed not only others, but yourself. If you feel this way, this video is for you. And no, you are not alone. The truth is harsh, but it needs to be said. The world was not made for brilliant people. It was made for functional people. And being functional is very different from being talented. When you were a child, your quick mind, sharp perception, and extraordinary creativity seemed like gifts. But now, it feels like all of that has become a burden, as if that immense potential has turned into a weight you carry silently every day, without knowing exactly where you went wrong along the way. You feel that you could have done more, been more, created more. And maybe that's true. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is what was expected of you, what you were promised, what you believed you would be? The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said, "The greater the intelligence, the deeper the pain." And maybe now you are starting to understand what he meant. Because being intelligent is realizing what others do not see, including the mediocrity of the world around you. It's feeling that you think too much, feel too much, understand too much, but act too little. Because a sharp mind paralyzes. It questions everything, it doubts itself. And in that process, while others just move on, you freeze, and you start to wonder, where did that spark go? Why do I feel so lost now? This video is not a moral lesson. It's not empty motivation. It's a direct conversation with the part of you that is tired of pretending everything is fine. Here, we will face the pain of someone who grew up hearing they were special, but now feels they have not lived up to that. We will use Schopenhauer as a philosophical guide to understand why this happens and how it is possible to reclaim something from this internal chaos. Because it's not about recovering the prodigy you once were. It's about finally understanding the adult you have become. If you've made it this far, it's because this pain belongs to you. So stay. You deserve to hear what you were never told. Your talent has not disappeared. It has only been suffocated by expectations that were never yours to begin with. Since early on, you learned that being intelligent was not just a characteristic, it was an identity. You were the special one, the above average, the one who would go far. Remember? It wasn't just about getting good grades or learning quickly. It was the way adults looked at you as if they saw something rare, almost magical. Every word you spoke became a source of pride. Every achievement, a prophecy being fulfilled. But what no one told you, perhaps because they didn't even know, is that along with these compliments came an invisible prison. A label that looked beautiful on the outside, but was corrosive on the inside. Being called a genius at 8 years old may seem like a gift, but by 30, it can turn into a curse. The problem with being recognized too early is that it conditions your worth to your performance. You are no longer just a child, you are the prodigy. And this title comes with a silent contract. You need to keep impressing, always. Because if you stop, if you stumble, if you fail, then you weren't that much of a prodigy after all. And this idea haunts you. You began to internalize that your worth lies in delivering exceptional results. That you only deserve love, respect, and admiration if you continue to be brilliant. And this made you grow up with a constant fear, the fear of disappointing. And this fear, contrary to what they say, didn't push you forward. It paralyzed you. It made you procrastinate, sabotage opportunities, postpone projects. Because when all that is expected of you is genius, any movement feels insufficient. You were taught to be extraordinary, But no one taught you to be human. And the cruelest part of it all is that this label doesn't stop in time. It seeps into adulthood. Now you are no longer the prodigy, but rather the disappointment. And you feel ashamed for not having made it. You avoid family gatherings, ignore former teachers, flee from comparisons with peers who weren't that smart, but who now have their lives more together than yours. Arthur Schopenhauer, with his dark yet honest view of existence, saw this suffering as inevitable. For him, the world is indifferent to individual brilliance. The blind will to live drags us in search of satisfaction, but the more aware we are, the more we realize the futility of it all. What for others is just passing frustration, for you is almost an existential anguish, because you didn't just want to live well. You wanted your life to have meaning, an impact, a greatness. But the real world doesn't work that way. And the more you realize this, the more it seems that something in you is slowly dying. And then comes the inevitable question: if all of this is true, if talent guarantees nothing, then what really drives us? What makes someone continue to seek even when everything seems meaningless? The answer may lie in what Schopenhauer called will, a blind impulse that commands us, but which, for the gifted, takes on a distorted form. And that is what we will explore in the next part. Because perhaps what you call failure is not your failure, but rather the result of a silent struggle against a will that was never yours. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Schopenhauer said that human beings are governed by an irrational and unconscious force, the will to live. But contrary to what many think, this will is not guided by reason, logic, or the desire for happiness. It is blind, incessant, and cruel. It simply wants. It wants to exist. It wants to continue. It wants to assert itself. It wants more. For the average person, this will manifest in mundane desires, comfort, status, survival. But for the gifted mind, it takes on a much more complex and self-destructive form: the will to be extraordinary. You have been conditioned from an early age not just to live, but to justify your existence. While others went through life without deep questioning, you grew up with a sense of urgency. How will I prove that I am what they expect of me? How will I turn my talent into something grand, something that leaves a mark? And this drive, this desire for transcendence, began to consume you from within. It became an obsession. Yet reality rarely rewards depth. The world is fast, shallow, and merciless to those who think too much. The talent that once set you apart has now become your prison. You can't start a project without wanting it to be perfect. You can't accept a simple life without feeling like a failure. You can't act without first freezing under the weight of all the expectations, real or imagined, that have been placed on your shoulders. This will to be extraordinary is a distortion of the original will. Schopenhauer saw suffering as inevitable precisely because the more awareness you have of life, the more you realize how marked it is by frustration and helplessness. And if you're someone with high intellect, this realization is even more painful. You see the emptiness in social goals, in the pursuit of success, in the promises of happiness. But even seeing it, you can't simply free yourself, because the will still drives you. It demands that you do something great, even if you are sinking in silence. And the more you fail to reach that ideal, the further you drift away from yourself. Talent becomes a curse. Awareness becomes pain. And the mind that was once a source of admiration becomes your worst enemy. You enter a cycle, You feel you need to create something grand to justify your existence, but the weight of that demand paralyzes you. And when you don't deliver, you feel guilt, shame, self-contempt, and then it all starts over again. This internal, silent, and corrosive dynamic is what leads so many gifted adults to a chronic state of dissatisfaction, procrastination, and self-sabotage. Not because they are lazy or disorganized, but because they have been taught to never accept anything less than genius. But what happens when that ideal crumbles? When talent does not bear fruit? When reality does not match what was envisioned? What happens to those who were trained to be special but find no place in the world? It is at this point that everything begins to fall apart. Because the next collapse will not only be external, it will be internal. And this is what we will discuss in the next part, the moment when the identity built around talent begins to crumble, and the adult finds themselves lost within their own mind.